Hi guys, and welcome to today's video on the basics of algebra. This is for all the GCSE math students, and what I'll be going through today is the rules of negative numbers and how we apply them to letters that we use in algebra, how we multiply those letters that are used, and what a term is, examples of a term, and how we collect and simplify them. So the first thing we're going to go through is the rules of negative numbers. Now we use these when we either multiply or divide numbers. So rule number 1, when we have a positive number with another positive number, we get a positive answer. Number 2, if we have a positive and negative number, the answer is negative. Number 3, if we have a negative and a positive number, the answer will be negative. So 2 and 3 are the same thing but just flipped around. And number 4 is if we have a negative and a negative number, which makes a positive. So as we can see, the examples show that when we have numbers, we can have minus 6 times 2, which gives minus 12. And here we see that 6 is a negative. And because it's a negative, the answer is also a negative. The same thing happens with the minus 20 when we divide it by 5 and we get minus 4. When we look at the letters, we have minus x times y, and the answer therefore becomes minus xy because the x is negative in the actual question. So another way we can use these negative number rules is when we have a plus and a minus together. So for example, here right at the bottom of the page, we can see that we have x plus and negative y. So if we use the rules, we can use the rules and we can see that a positive and a negative makes a negative. So the answer is x minus y. Again, if we look at the second example, we have x plus negative y. Here, this is the same thing as the first example. And then we have an extra minus z. If we look at rule number 4, we can see that if there's 2 negative, it makes a positive. So the answer would become x minus y plus z. The next thing we're going to look at is when we multiply letters. Now, number 1 says x, y, z means x times y times z. Normally, in algebra for GCSE maths, we don't add the multiplication signs because it makes it more clear for us to see. So x, y, z is much more simpler than x times y times z. Number 2 is very similar because we have ab squared, which can also be written as a multiplied by b times b. Now we can see that b times b is basically b squared. So that is how it's written. But again, because of simplicity and we want to write it as clearly as we can, because we have a lot of terms in lots of different questions. So that's the easiest way to write that. Number 3, we can see that instead of ab squared without brackets, now it does have brackets. The only difference here is that instead of the b being squared on its own, the a is also squared. So we have a times b times b. Now in number 4, we have x times the y minus z squared. Here it's exactly the same thing. All we do is multiply y minus z twice. We keep the brackets there and we add multiplied by x, which is very simple because we just see that x times y minus z times y minus z shows us that the y minus z is squared, and then we have an x. Number 5 says minus 4 squared. Now we can write minus 4 squared in 2 different ways. We can either write the whole minus 4 in a bracket and square it, which gets 16. Or we can put the minus outside the bracket and just have the 4 squared. This will give us minus 16, and that is because the minus is outside of the brackets. The final thing we're going to look at in this video is about what a term is, examples of a term, and how we collect and simplify like terms. So the definition is right at the top, and it says that a term is a collection of numbers, letters, and brackets, all multiplied or divided together. Now in the examples we can see that it says 2x squared, 5xy, minus 3y and 6x. The 2x squared is an x squared term, the 5xy is an xy term, the minus 3y is a y term, and 6x is just an x term. Now if we look right at the bottom, it says collecting or simplifying like terms. Now the question is very simple. As we can see, the 3x and the 2x are underlined in pink, and the minus 5 and 6 are underlined in blue. And all we have to do to answer the question is put the x's together and the numbers together. So if we put the 3x and 2x together makes 5x. If we put the minus 5 and 6 together, we get 1. And the answer is 5x plus 1. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.